morning, everyone. God is indeed so good. When I had my first chance to buy a personal computer, a laptop, there was no Core i5, Core i3, Core i7 back then. The fastest back then was Pentium M. You still remember, right? Pentium 1, 2, 3, 4. And then here came out Pentium M, Pentium D. And later, nagkaroon ng dual core, nagkaroon ng octa-core. And then after this dual core, octa-core processor, they released the Core i3, Core i5, and I think this time the fastest is Core i7. So those of you who have knowledge about computers, it's getting faster if it is partnered with a high-power dedicated video card plus a big RAM, then your computer could move very fast. But so far, for the meantime, Core i7 is the fastest that we have in the market. But experts said this: if you compare computers with human minds, it's far, far behind. Because human minds, according to experts, can be compared to at least 3 to 5 supercomputers per brain. Human brain is really very powerful. And just try to imagine this. If you use a computer to edit photos, it would take you several minutes before it's finished. Especially if the editing that you will do is quite extreme. It would take time. For example, you have a picture of a lady wearing black shirt with a yellow-colored hair. That's the picture, with black dress, a lady with a black dress and a yellow-colored hair. Now you want to edit it, and you want to change the color of the hair into red, and you want to put on to that picture, in the lady's picture, you want to put on a red pants. So a red hair and a red pants. So you want to change the clothes and the color of the hair. It would take you several minutes if you Photoshop it. Much more in video editing. There was one time in the past that I tried learning After Effects, Adobe After Effects. And it took me several hours to create a 7-second video presentation. Because I wanted a one sentence that has motion around it. That it would be creatively presented when it comes out of the screen. It's going to be very creative. I want to do that. And it took me several hours just to create a 7-second video presentation. Because my computer is only capable in that sense. I am a beginner in using the software. But listen, but when you imagine human brains, you have an object that does not move. You close your eyes and immediately you could make that object move in your mind. That fast is your brain when it processes something. You can even imagine, while you are looking at me right now, and you don't like to listen to me, you could even imagine that my mouth is just moving without a sound coming out. Your brain can do that. You can even imagine that my hair is colored yellow this time without taking 2 seconds. Just imagining. So your brain is really very powerful. And that poses a reality that there is someone who designed that brain who is far more intelligent than you are today. And that person we call God. We cannot deny that we bear the intelligence, the intellect that God has given us. But I observe also that the world's trend of education today is getting into specialization, wherein one person would learn and go for his master's in more specific way and go for his doctorate degree in a more specific way. Specialization. That reality also poses a truth that God gave us the intellect, but nobody among us in the human history can say that I know everything. Even if you already have a double doctorate, your expertise would only be limited in those 2 doctorates that you have. So if you are having you're a doctor of medicine and you are into pediatrics, specializing on pulmon aspects of the body, and the other one is in the other aspects. But when there is someone, a patient, whose problem is not related to your expertise, then that person should go to another doctor. So that's the trend of specialization, because there is no one on earth who would be able or is capable of saying, I know everything. So whatever is your sickness, you come to me. Whatever is your problem, you come to me. If it is plumbing, you come to me. I'm a medical doctor. I also know plumbing. I also know lawn mowing. I also know gardening. There are people around us who know many things, but there is nobody who can claim, I know everything. No one. And that one who can claim that he knows everything is only the one who designed and who gave you your intellect. No other than God Himself. And that God is personally known by David, and that is why when he wrote one of the Psalms in the Old Testament, he described God as somebody who knows all things. Theologically, we state it in one word, which says omniscient. So that's the title of the message today. This is our God Omniscient. Meaning to say, it came from the words omni, all, and then science. Know, knowledge, knowing. So when that word is used to attribute to God, it means to say God knows all things. David wrote, explaining to us and expressing to us this characteristic of God in the book of Psalm, chapter 139, or the 139th Psalm. Please open your Bibles with me. Psalm 139, 1 to 6. Next Sunday, God willing, I'll be speaking again. I would still be basing from the book of Psalm, because Psalm 139 is divided into 4 parts. The first part is found in verses 1 to 6. It speaks about God is omniscient. He knows all things. You look at verses 7 to 13, you would be able to see there that God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. And you look further in the following verses, you would be able to see there that David described God as somebody who can do all things. Omnipotent God. Okay? And then the rest of the passage tells us about the response a human being can give to this greatness of our God. So we would be focusing in verses 1 to 6 that talks about the omniscient God. God knows all things. I'll read it from the NIV. Okay? It says here, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. May the good Lord bless the reading of His word. This is our God, and that God of ours is omniscient. The very first verse of Psalm 139, it already expresses to us or tells us a summary of what David would tell later. He acknowledged that as a person, when he stands before the presence of God, God looks at him and God sees everything in Him. Our human minds are very powerful. It is reinforced by the senses that we have. The sense of smelling, the sense of touch, hearing, tasting, seeing. These are senses that give information to our brain, and our brain would process it. It's very powerful. But it is still limited if you contrast it to God's wisdom and knowledge. It is limitless because whatever our eyes could not see, God can see. Whatever your brain could not comprehend, God's brain can comprehend. I am using the figure of speech here, anthropomorphism, wherein God is attributed to have a human brain, but in reality He is a spirit, but He thinks. His capability is beyond our comprehension. That's the God that we worship, and David acknowledged it. Lord, you know me. You see my heart. You see my thoughts. You see everything in me. And when you look at verse 2, it says there, you know when I sit and when I rise. Now look at this. There is a portion in this verse that I place inside a blue box. It's there on the screen. This is a merism, a figure of speech, a parallelism, which talks about the totality of his description. Now David said, you know when I sit and when I rise. In what particular aspect? You perceive my thoughts from afar. In other words, you know me when I sit and when I rise. In those times that I am sitting down and in those times that I am standing up, whether in the middle of these two instances, you know my inmost being. You know my thoughts. You know me from afar. David expressed this knowing that his limitation is there present in him. Human beings, we can know someone, but only in a very partial way, right? Even if two individuals fell in love with each other and they live for years, the tendency is your knowledge about that person is still partial. It's not full 100%. There was one time, this was shared to me by my mother. There was one time in the past that they had a disagreement with my father. And then at the height of their conversation, my father stated this short line. He told her, we've been married for 8 years or 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. Around 8 years, I think, or 10 years. We've been married that long. But you do not know me yet. They've been married for 8 to 10 years, and he was able to state that line, you do not know me yet. That poses a reality that you have capability of knowing the person, another person, but it is only in a very partial way, not in a full sense. For 8 to 10 years, they would close their eyes, seeing the person right in front, and then they would wake up in the morning seeing the same person for 8 to 10 years. They've been together, they converse with each other, they know each other's characters, but not full, only partial. Because our knowledge, the capability of our brain is limited. No matter how long you live with your spouse, your knowledge about that person is only partial. You may know the person better than other person would know about that spouse of yours. Kasi magkasama kayo ng matagal. But not full. There are things in that person's life that you wouldn't know. Because our brain, it's limited. That's why when we talk to another person that we have not been acquainted yet with, the tendency is we try to read what is in the mind and heart of the person by observing his actions and the way he talks. Ano kaya tong pag-uugali ng taong to? Medyo arrogante kasi kung magsalita. Or mayabang. Kasi parating nagsasalita ng about sa mga accomplishment niya. So we try to read what's in the mind and in the heart of the person through the actions and the words that he says. But is it exact? No. Because there are people who are very vocal and yet they are not arrogant in reality. So, we try to read someone's mind and thoughts and motives, and yet we cannot know it fully. It's only partial. Kaya nga sa mga investigative matter, investigators, they use, yung mga ini-interrogate nila, they use the detector, a lie detector. Because even if they have studied already human behavior, when they talk to someone and interrogate someone, they need the assistance of that machine or of that scheme so that at least, at some degree, they would get close to which is true. Because you cannot read the mind of the person. Even Satan cannot read the mind of yours. You only make some guess when you deal with someone around you. Kaya nga kahit parent-child relationship, sabi ng isang mother sa anak niya, huwag ka munang mag-boyfriend, anak ka, kasi 14 ka pa lang. Opo, mama, hindi talaga. Pag humagpananghid, tuwa sa gate, gahulat ang boyfriend, gamotor. Hulat sa gawas. And the mom did not know. That is why, if you are a parent, yesterday I was talking to a friend, a pastor also, and he shared to me what he wanted from his children. One time, he talked to them and he said, whatever happens, I would promise to you, if you committed a mistake, I will not spunk you, I will not scold you, as long as you tell me the truth. Why did he say that? Because it's a reality that even children, they would lie. And because our brains are not capable of reading their minds and hearts, we want them to tell us the truth. That's reality. So, we have to accept that fact. But God, according to the statement of David, you know me when I sit down, when I rise up, in the whole duration of time, you know what's in my mind. You know my motives. God is not reading your mind through your actions. God does not read your heart through your activities. No. When He looks at you, He sees you from within. It's more than an X-ray. Another thing is this. When you proceed to verse 3, there is another merism here. You discern my going out and my lying down. In what particular aspect? He said continually, you are familiar with all my ways. Verse 2 talks about God's full knowledge in the inmost inner part of us. This time, in verse 3, it is talking about your activities within the day. For parents, it's good for us now that we have cell phone and we can ask our children. When they step out of their house, of your house, you don't know anymore what they do in school. Na gani uban nga, pag abot sa graduation, magtuga pod kunuhay. Katude ay upat ka bulan na way sulod-sulod sa klase. Ang nahibalaan sa parents ni atong eskwela. But why does that happen? Because our brains are limited. We do not know fully the activities of the people around us, especially when they are hiding from us or they are out of our vision's reach already. We cannot know. We don't know. But God sees every activity in your life. And when the Bible says, you discern my going out and my lying down. This is a merism. Listen to this. In the morning, you wake up, you rise up, right? You wake up, you go out of your house. You go out of your house, you go to school, you go to your workplace, you talk to your friends, you watch cine, you go to a mall, whatever you do. The whole day, in the afternoon, you come home and lie down during the night to sleep. In the morning, you wake up again. So, this statement here, you discern my going out and my lying down, it means to say, you know my activities in the whole day. And there is no activity that God would miss in each person's life. He knows every activity that you have. And when you proceed to verse 4, next slide, David clarified something further. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. Now listen, in verses 2 and 3, it's describing about your actual feelings, your actual thoughts, your actual emotions, your actual actions. Verses 2 and 3. But verse 4, it talks about the potential things that you do. In other words, before you even utter a word in your mouth, God knows that you will say that. And I think this is implied also in your actions. Even before you got mad from the statements that you heard, God knows already that you will get mad. So He knows both the current, the actual actions and thoughts, and He knows even the potential things that you are about to do. That is the knowledge of your God. And that is why when you look at verses 5 and 6, this is the response of David. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Because your God knows all things. Now, what does it imply in our personal lives? If God knows all things, since He knows all things, what is the significance of that to me, to you in your day-to-day living? I have listed down 3 things here. 3 things. Number 1 is this. In relation to our way of living, within the culture of shame, it compels us to live in righteousness, knowing that God knows our motives and actions. When you go to your office, your transactions should be correct and your actions should relay the truth. When you are conducting a business, your scales, your way of managing, your way of dealing with your customers, with your clients, and with your workers, or with your boss, should be correct, should be true. Because even if they don't know about it, if you are lying, your God knows what you do and what you think and what you feel. So this should affect our day-to-day living. For students, you deal with matters in your school with all honesty. And when your parents would ask you, where have you been? You better tell them the truth. You should not tell them, I've been from the study group because we have an exam coming, if you did not really go and study with your classmates. Because even if your parents would not know the reality, your God knows it all. Nakahinumdum ko aning kanta sa 1980s nga gaingon, God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. Do you remember that? I think that conveys a theological reality. God is seeing us. That's why He knows all the activities, all the things that we do. There is no hidden from Him. So we better be aware of that because it affects our way of living. Second implication is this. In relation to our standing with God. This is kind of scary if you don't have Jesus. Because He knows everything about us, yet He chose to accept us and see us through the righteousness of Jesus. Listen, this is the world perceives us today. The world. The world would look at your physical appearance. If you are not good looking, then you won't get their attention. If you are not good looking, then you won't be appreciated. Then if you are not good looking, probably your value is a little bit lesser than those who are good looking. That's how the world perceives everything. Mao ganing ugang ilong, wala kayo ni asinso. Mangita na yung kwarta kay magpa-no slip. Di ba? Because that's how the world. It reminds me of these young people whose name is now Sander Ford. You heard about him in the social media, on TV. That even his own father does not know him anymore. Ingon iyang papa sa interview, di naman siya mao. Because his face is already different. Why does He like that? Because the world would look at our physical appearance and would treat us based on how we appear. But not with our God. Because in reality, when God looks at us, and if He chooses to see and look at our own ability, our own performance, our own way of living, we will all be ugly in the sight of God. That's reality. Because even if we are Christians, already reality is that we commit mistakes. In fact, some of us just lied about an hour ago. In fact, some of us thought of a negative thing about a neighbor, about a friend, about an office mate, about a classmate. In fact, some of us would admit that there are certain time and moments in life wherein there is a sin that keeps on coming back to you. That's reality. So if we would stand before God and He looks at us and He would choose to see us from our own righteousness, our own way of living, and our own performance and ability, then we will all fail because we were all ugly in His sight. But praise be unto God, because when He looks at you, when He looks at us here today, He would choose not to see our own ugliness, because He would choose to see the righteousness of Christ in us. That is why it is very important to know that Jesus Christ lived His life perfectly on earth. Somebody asked me, Pastor, why does Jesus have to die on the cross? Why Him? Can't it be not just someone else? When you trace the history of of sacrifice and offerings in the Old Testament, you would see that God would always require a pure, unblemished lamb or animal. Because the point of the matter is this: when you sacrifice something, it should be pure so that your impurity would be carried in that sacrifice. In that sense, Jesus' life on earth was perfect. There is no sin that He committed. No mistake as far as God's eyes and the law is concerned. No mistake that Jesus Christ committed. So He lived His life on earth perfectly. That is why He became the perfect sacrifice on the cross. And because He died having the perfect life as a perfect sacrifice, He got your impurities, He got your imperfections, and now He gave you His righteousness and perfection. That is why when you stand in the presence of God today, God would choose the righteousness of Christ in you rather than your own ugliness before His sight. So when you would be asked theologically, are you righteous? Morally and personally, we are not. But because of the righteousness of Jesus, we can say we are righteous in the presence of God. And I think that should compel us to live our lives with thanksgiving to Jesus every day. Kay og abot sa langit, di man ka pwede mo ingon nga, Lord, pasudla ko kay nagpa-nose lift baya ko. Nagpakulong baya ko hair, Lord, oh. Nubo ni sa una, pero ako gining ipataas kay musaka na ko sa langit. You cannot tell that to God. God would let you in only because you have Jesus. And you have been made righteous in the righteousness of Christ. Another implication is this. Knowing that God knows all things in relation to our experiences, He knows what we are going through, and He's on the business of shaping us and addressing our needs according to His will. Naiuban sa atoa, when we experience difficulties in life, we would say, Lord, this is really hard. This is really tough. I cannot make it. But suddenly, God sends someone to help you. Suddenly, God brings an answer to your problem. Why? Because He knows your situation. I don't know your situation today. I don't know. I don't know what's in your heart. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know if you could still sleep during the night. I don't know. But your God knows. And He is on the business of shaping you and bringing answers to your petition to Him. He knows. And He understands you. The problem is, there are many times when we pray to God, there is a certain answer that we want. Ano bang magambo? Lord, tagaay ko ani Lord be. Imo ang mind, na ay something imong mind nga specific kayo. Okay raman po na. Pero the problem is this, when God sends an answer that is not the same with what we think about, we don't accept it as an answer. This reminds me of a story of a guy who happened to have a 3-story house. So, tulo ka indana iyahang balay. Unya, niabot ang bagyo, ni ulan, nagbaha. So, isahay salamat, Lord, kay tulo ka stories akong balay. So, musaka ko sa second floor, kay nisulod naman ang tubig sa iyang first floor. After around 4 hours, the rain did not stop. It continued pouring. So, after several hours, it already reached the second floor. And he said, Lord, thank you, because I have still the 3rd floor. A few hours later, dawn already. He woke up because he sensed that his room is already very cold. It was then when he realized that the water already reached the 3rd floor. So, he was alarmed. And he said, I would go to the rooftop na lang. Saka siya. Sa Lord, please send an answer to my prayer. Help me. He was on the rooftop. The morning came. The rain continued. And he kept on praying because the water was rising, almost about to reach his feet. And he was praying, Lord, help me, send help to me. And while he was there, the rain continued. He saw a refrigerator, an old refrigerator, nga nahayang kay gibaha naman, naglutaw-lutaw siya. Sayang yun ang mga sulod aning ref. Lord, padali ko tabang. Not knowing nga, katulad na yung tabang ni Lord. When I was in Manila, I lived in Karuhatan. If you happen to be in Monumento and you would go home to Karuhatan, unya timpong ulan, di ka katabok. Pag-abot mo sa tulay, bisag ang bus dili katabok. So, there are people there, nga mga bright kaining Pinoy, na ay mga refrigerator nga daot, ice chest man na sulod ana. Ilan ang balihon? O gusto ka mo tabok 100. So, o di ka gusto mo bayad og 100, pabilin ka sa pikas. And if you want to go home, you pay 100. So 100, tabok-tabok na sila. Munang mga taga BBB, gusto nila yan sa may malabo na area. Gusto nila yan na umuulan kasi makakatawid sila, magkakapera. Makatabok kag pulo katao sa usa ka gabi, edi sa kalibo. So ihuna na. And this guy was there on the rooftop praying, Lord, send me an answer. He saw the fridge. He did not mind it. Later, the water was already on his bewang na, nakatayo siya dun sa rooftop. And then he saw a huge log floating. And he looked up to God and said, Lord, please send me an answer. Wa man yun ni undang ulan. Namatay si Baludoy. He died. So he went up to heaven because he has Jesus in his heart. Abot sa gate, nagyaw-yaw na siya sugod. Manong wamang ko ni mo to baga? Gusto pa ko mabuhi. Ingon si Lord sa ihado, gipadalhan ba takag-rep nga bali? Wa ni mo pansina. Gipadalhan takag kahoy nga galutaw, wa po ni mo pansina. Kay gahuna-huna kag helicopter akong ipadala nimo. Usually when we pray, there is something in our mind, a very specific answer. But sometimes when God sends another answer, we don't recognize it. But reality is that when you pray, God answers. Because He knows your situation. He knows your needs. He knows what you go through. That is the privilege of having a God whose knowledge is limitless. That is the privilege if you worship an omniscient God. Come back next week and learn more about Him. We will talk about the omnipresent God next Sunday. God bless us all.